Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. My name is Jessica Kapulong, and today's topic we're going to talk about global population and mobility. We are the group 8. I am partnered or grouped with Cometa and Cosme. Our agenda for today is to discuss definition of terms, the global city, what is global city, its characteristics, population and demography, just a short introduction of demography, and global migration and OFWs. Population refers to the total number of individuals or inhabitants in a region, country, or a particular area. Mobility is the movement or the ability to be moved or moved from one place to another with the intention of settling temporarily or permanently at a new location. Demography is the study of human population and the process through which population change. When we are encountering a new topic as a student, we would always ask ourselves, how is this topic important to us? Or how will this affect us on our chosen career in the future? The way a city is shaped, the way a firm should function, and the ability to accommodate consumers or the advancement of technology are all under this topic. On the topic global city, it captures some global crisis. An example of this crisis is an increase of unemployment, which could lead to the decrease of people being able to buy certain products or service, or in other words, lesser source of profit for firms. Because of the continuously growing population in our world, if a country wouldn't be able to accommodate these people, or if a country wouldn't be able to reach an individual standard of living, migration would show up to the situation. Maybe 5 or 10 years from now, if we are going to choose which country or city would be an ideal place to work in or just reside into, we would definitely choose a firm or a place that is on a global city or is considered as one. First, let's dig deeper on what is a global city. Global city, also known as World Center, Power City, World City, and Alpha City, is a city which is a primary node in the global economic network. If we're talking about global city, we would always think that it is all about wealth, power, and influence. It is center of new ideas and innovation and the building blocks of globalization. The term global city refers to cities that are big contributors in the global economic system. This is why it is the primary node. It has the power to affect global issues and change the global outlook, with increased attention being brought into globalization during subsequent years. These world cities came to be more known as global city. These cities are the key location within global networks of production, finance, and telecommunication. This is why it is the building blocks of globalization. But alongside to everything, global city has its disadvantages. It captures a global crisis of inequality and poverty. For example, here in Metro Manila, we have a lot of buildings or infrastructures, but we also have a lot of poor or impoverished area. Actually, Manila is the only Philippine city included in the list of global city, but it has a very low ranking. Unlike other countries such as China, United States, and Japan, they have multiple cities ranked in one or both lists. Environmental degradation. Most cities are the main reason of harming the environment because of how polluted it is. There would be a lot of social pollution if there's a lot of people residing on a particular city. There would most likely be a lot of transportation or cars being involved in that city. Like if there's a lot of buildings, there would be a lot of people. If there would be a lot of people, there would be a lot of transportation. Global cities are great sites of major terrorist attacks, like they are a magnet for terrorism. The 9/11, for example, it happened on one of the high scorer on the ranks of global city, which is New York City. How will we know if a city is considered as a global city? Here are some indicators or characteristics of a global city. Economic power. Domination of the trade and economy of a large surrounding area. Economic power, according to Saskia Sassen, largely determines which cities are considered global. This is the ability of a country, business, or individual to improve their standard of living. Like having New York City, they have the largest stock market. Tokyo, Japan, having the most numbers of headquarters firms, and Shanghai, China being the top country that relates being the center of manufacturing activities or the global supply chain. Economic competitiveness and opportunities. This focuses on the market size, purchasing power of citizens, size of the social classes, and the potential for it to grow. Economic opportunities. Here is the chance to earn more or gain an economic benefit. The global city is the powerhouse when it comes to the economy. It is the center of the stock market of a country. It has the headquarters and head offices, etc. Example is Silicon Valley in New York City, where you would be able to see Apple, the headquarters of Apple, Facebook, Google, and many more. This is an area of high-tech companies centered around Southern Manhattan's district in NYC. You would also be able to find the headquarters of Netflix in Silicon Valley. A global city is the center of high learning and culture. It has monuments, museums, and other more research facilities, sports centers, theater, and universities. Global city is characterized as the center of authority. Like in Washington, D.C., it might not be as wealthy as NYC, but it is the seat of the U.S. power. You would be able to find the White House, the Washington Monument, and the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. Now, how do they rank the cities, the global cities? A.T. Kearney's list, developed in conjunction with the Chicago Council on Global Affairs. Their most recent version is this one, the 2012 Global Cities Index. This study uses criteria across 5 dimensions: their business activity, human capital size, information exchange, political engagement, and their cultural experience. Their business activity, like I've mentioned, in New York City, which has the headquarters of Netflix, Facebook, and Apple, and many more. New York City is considered or is one of the high scorer of global city. In the human capital size, they would measure the quality of a university, number of international schools, and the international student population of a city. In cultural experience and political engagement, they would measure the number of sports events, museums, and the number of embassies of a city. Another study or another way for them to rank the global cities is the Global Power City Index 2011, published by the Institute for Urban Strategies at the Mori Memorial Foundation in Tokyo. This report examines cities by several actor types according to managers, researchers, artists, visitors, and residents. The criteria in this study is the economy, livability, cultural interaction, research and development, environment, and the accessibility. In this study, they would rank a city according to its market attractiveness, security and safety, cost of living. Also, if this city is up to date with trends, and if it's very attractive to visitors, and also the natural environment and its transportations. Based on my research, a lot of authors and researchers claims that New York, London, and Tokyo scores highly on all of these criterias. It is definitely obvious on why it scores highly according to these pictures. In the first picture, this is New York City. In the center is London. And the third one is Tokyo, Japan. In the definition of population, keywords for the three keywords are always involved the group, place, and time. Demographers commonly define population as a collective group of individuals habiting a particular place at a given time. The world's population has doubled in just 5 decades since 1970. The world's population was 3.7 billion during 1970, and it is currently 7.7 billion. And according to economists, it's likely there will be a billion more by 2030. Every continent has different population growth. The fastest population rises are in Africa and Asia, which will have 8 out of 10 most populous countries by 2050. Those 8 countries are seen here in the photo provided. According to demographers, by 2050, India will replace China as the country with the largest population, Nigeria being the third world's most populous country. All the top 10 with the fastest shrinking population is found in the Eastern Europe. They suffer from low birth rates, high mortality rate, and massive outmigration. Population tends to rise because of how few the death rate of the world is compared to its birth rate. Before the COVID-19 strikes, fewer people were dying than being born. During 2000, the Philippines has a death rate of 5.46 and a birth rate of 3.82%. And as of this day, a death rate of 5.97% is shown here in the Philippines, and a birth rate 2.53%. In one country, to be specific, the Philippines, it already has a huge difference in death rate and birth rate compared to the situation we have before the situation we have now. Imagine if it is a country with a lot of cases of COVID-19. It would have a lot more difference. Demography, as I've mentioned, is the study of human population and the process through which populations change. And its intention is to focus on these three observable human phenomena. Change in population size, population composition. This is the characterizing group of people in terms of their age, sex, marital status, education, occupation, and the disturbance of population in space, or in other terms, the population size, density, and distribution. The 5 process of demography determines these human phenomena. These are the demographic process, the 5 demographic process. First is fertility, or the ability to bear an offspring. Mortality is destined to die, or it refers to the health and death of the population. Marriage, migration, social mobility. Social mobility is the movement of individuals through a system of social hierarchy, and it has 2 types, which is horizontal mobility and vertical mobility. The difference between these 2 types of social mobility is that if mobility involves a change in position or occupation but no change in social class, it is called horizontal mobility. An example would be an employee who has been moved from a managerial position in one company to a similar position in the previous company he or she is working on. On the other hand, if the movement involves a change in social class, it is called vertical mobility. If an industrial worker who becomes a wealthy CEO moves upward in the class system, this is called upward mobility in vertical mobility. Downward mobility is when, for example, a loan shark loses everything. It moves downward in the system. Now, the 3 demographic components, which are the birth, death, and migration, this affects the situation of population. Mainly, the size of population depends on these three. Births are affected by fertility, death by mortality, and migration by process of migration and or marriage. This ends my part of the discussion. Thank you for listening. Next reporter would explain or further explain what is global migration.